Just ahead on One Detroit, the Detroit Public Theater has a new home. We'll hear from the theater's co-founders about the move and the upcoming season. Also coming up, leaders of the Jewish and interfaith communities in Metro Detroit provide a Michigan perspective on the Holocaust and anti-Semitism. Plus, we'll examine the effects of social media on young people's mental health in a special report. And our Future of Work series looks at affordable childcare and other issues impacting women in the workforce. It's all coming up next on One Detroit.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Support for this program is provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV, the Kresge Foundation.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you.
Just ahead on this week's One Detroit. Detroit Public Television partners with the Zekelman Holocaust Center for a candid panel discussion on Michigan's response to the Holocaust. We'll have a portion of that conversation with local Jewish and interfaith leaders. Also coming up, balancing the benefits of social media with the negative impact on teenagers' mental health. PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Lab's Gwen Ifill Legacy Fellow Zion Williams takes a close look at the issue and some possible solutions. Plus, more than 1 million women left the U.S. workforce over the past 2 years. Our Future of Work Town Hall series focuses on the challenges faced by working women. But first up, the Detroit Public Theater is opening its new season in a new home. The theater is now located on 3rd Street in Detroit. Its first production at the new venue is Mud Row by renowned Detroit playwright Dominique Morisseau. One Detroit Arts and Culture host Satori Shakur sat down with the theater's co-founders and co-producing artistic directors, Courtney Burkett, Sarah Claire Corprandi, and Sarah Winkler.
I am now joined by founders and co-artistic directors, Courtney Burkett, Sarah Claire Corporandi, and Sarah Winkler. Welcome. And I know you're getting ready to open. Mm-hmm. And you look so calm. What's it like? What's it like to be 54 hours away?
It's really exciting. There's just a lot of things still going through our head. We look calm, but we are not calm. There are many, many things left to do. And so we will be working up to the last minute. And really, we're just getting started, even at opening night. This is just the beginning of the work that we're going to do in this space. So we're excited, we're ready, but there's still a lot of things to do.
Well, congratulations. And I mean, you moved to a different space, but the vibe is the same. And if you can move a vibe, where a vibe comes, you are the vibe.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I think we had a really good thing going with our audience and with the artists that we were bringing into the space. And, it's important to us that we have a good vibe, that this is a place that people want to come and see world-class theater and that people want to work in, and that we're trying to really create something beautiful fit with and for our community. So hopefully it was a place that people feel welcomed in and want to spend time in.
And I think it's something that we've talked a lot about when we began. We had a mission and a vision and values, and there is also an aesthetic to DPT, not just what you feel as an audience member, but what it's like to work here, to collaborate here. And it was really important to us as we looked at strategic planning and how we were going to grow, how we keep that close, intimate vibe. How do we keep that heart and soul of DPT as our family grows bigger, as our reach grows wider? And so hearing you say that in this moment, when we haven't even opened the doors yet, is huge validation that that soul of us is still here, and we want to make sure that when every single person walks through that door, you immediately feel that.
It does feel like a hug.
Yes.
Oh,
thank you.
That's so beautiful to hear. We keep saying that we want this space to be a warm and welcoming performance hub. And so to say that it feels like a hug is exactly what we were going for. Thank you, Satori.
Yes. What type of shows do you produce here?
One of our taglines a few years ago was "Sit down and make yourself uncomfortable," and that is that can mean a lot of things, but we are gonna challenge our audience and ourselves sometimes with our programming, and so it might be a little uncomfortable. You might think about it, you might get in an argument about it, you might get in a deep discussion, you might dream about it, right? So we want to make sure that we're pushing conversations forward, and that we're telling stories of Detroiters that our community can relate to and take back out into the world with them, and process whatever we're processing together as a community.
And we frequently use the words bold and relevant, and we've added the word urgent as well.
Okay.
So it's really, really important to us that the stories that we share with our DPT family and beyond are relevant.
What performances are going to be happening in this beautiful space?
So we open with Mud Row, which is a very, very powerful and beautiful and sometimes very funny story about family and forgiveness and sisterhood. And then we move into a play called Nora by Heather Raffo, who is coming here to star in the show. And that will be directed by Mike Mosalem, and then we move into The Peculiar Patriot by Lisa Jessie Peterson, and that is a show about that is a woman. It's a tour de force solo piece. You know a little bit about those, Satori, and that's a show about the prison industrial complex and what the prison system does to both incarcerated people and their loved ones.
Yes.
And then I'm going to let Courtney answer about Passing Strange.
Yeah, then we're closing our season with a musical called Passing Strange, which we are so excited to bring to Detroit audiences. It's just a phenomenal play that was produced on Broadway a couple years ago, and it's about a young man journeying to find the real, a young artist, and traveling all over the world and looking for, trying to find what really matters. But it's a real good time. So we're very much looking forward to closing the inaugural season in our new home with Passing Strange.
All right, well, is there anything else you want to say before we open?
Come to Detroit Public Theater. Tell everyone, please. There is a place in your life if there hasn't been before. You don't have to go to Chicago or New York or Stratford to see great plays. You can see them right here in the city of Detroit. So please come check out what we're doing at Detroit Public Theater.
Detroit deserves this, yes, and everyone is welcome.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
Yes.
All right.
Ken Burns' new PBS documentary, The U.S. and the Holocaust, is generating conversations about America's response to the Holocaust. Detroit Public Television and the Zekelman Holocaust Center come together for a frank discussion on where Michigan fits into the story. WDET reporter Eli Newman moderated the conversation with a panel of Metro Detroit Jewish and interfaith leaders. They talked about Michigan's perspective on the Holocaust and the anti-Semitism that still exists today.
I think one of the most difficult topics to kind of broach in terms of the Holocaust is that there is this idea that it's this singular kind of moment, incredibly complex, and yet we're supposed to learn from it, and we're supposed to be able to apply it to maybe contemporary situations. But yet there is a reluctance to explicitly draw that kind of comparison because of the uniqueness of it. So how do we advance that conversation? What can we take from this series of events, and how can we apply it to today? This is for anybody to kind of weigh in on.
Maybe I can take a shot at it. The Polish Jewish lawyer Raphael Lemkin coined the term genocide in 1944, and he said we needed the term precisely because this is something that happens so often. The problem is that we don't often we don't often call things genocide because we've set the bar so high or so low, I guess, at the Holocaust. And there are other atrocities, there are other things that Raphael Lemkin certainly would have regarded as genocide. That's why he made the term, but don't rise to the level of the Holocaust, perhaps, in whatever measures one wants to use. So I think we have to recognize that there are other atrocities that take place, and use the knowledge that we've gained from the Holocaust. The Holocaust has been very well studied, as a result of which we as historians, political scientists, philosophers have acquired a lot of tools from the Holocaust, from studying the Holocaust, that we can apply to other atrocities, and that we can use as early warning signs to try to prevent genocides and atrocities from happening elsewhere around the world based on what we've learned from the Holocaust.
The Anti-Defamation League released a report this year that anti-Semitic incidents have reached an all-time high, and 18% were connected to domestic extremists. And in Michigan, the ADL also noted that there was also a sharp rise in anti-Black, anti-LGBTQ, anti-Asian, and anti-Muslim hate. So, and this is, I think, for everybody to kind of chime in on, but how do we make sense of this sharp rise in hate in America?
I don't know that there is a one thing that we can say that we can change it. I agree that we need to start talking about it. But as I listened and watched the film, and and I can't remember his name, the second gentleman that talked about the Statue of Liberty being the white lady standing in the midst of the lake, and talking about how, you know, what do we stand for, and this is who we want to come in here. You know, that's where we have to start. We have to start changing the message that is out there, because that's one of the biggest lies that we're told, saying that bring us your hungry and those that are in pain, because that has never been realized.
You can watch Ken Burns' film, The U.S. and the Holocaust, on demand at dptv.org. Social media use by teens is widespread, but what impact is it having on their mental health? This summer, Zion Williams, a senior at L'Anse Creuse High School, interned at One Detroit. She went in search of some answers for her assignment as a PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Lab's Gwen Ifill Legacy Fellow for 2022. The One Detroit team worked with Zion to help her produce this report on teenagers, social media, and mental health.
A lot on social media, we watch other people socializing sometimes, and it's almost like, okay, well, what am I doing?
Social media seems to be everywhere in our everyday lives, which brought me to the question, how is it affecting the young people who use it? To find out, I sat down with my friends, Sophia, Marissa, and Brianne. So my first question for you guys today is, what social media platforms do you all use, and how often do you use them?
I mainly use Instagram, would probably be the one I use the most, and I use TikTok occasionally.
Yeah. Just Instagram.
Okay. I use Instagram and Snapchat, but Instagram is just like an art page.
Do you feel that social media is detrimental, or is it beneficial to your mental health?
I think it's 100% detrimental to me. I don't like being on my phone, yet I still find myself on my phone. I get bored and I turn to social media. And I think it just takes up too much of my time when I want to be doing other things, and I don't make the conscious decision to do something else when it's right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's very detrimental. I had to delete TikTok about 2 years ago because I was getting a lot of panic attacks from just watching the videos. When you get onto certain sites of social media, it's a lot of people trauma dumping, and that was not good.
Mm-hmm. To gain some more perspective, I spoke with Susan Salhaney, the COO of the Judson Center, a nonprofit organization that provides mental health services in the Metro Detroit area.
Social media really has some positive benefits overall, right? It keeps us connected with people, keeps us in tune with news and information. We can safely meet new people at times. But there's also, a downside to it, because that becomes our frame of what can be reality, or what a teen may think is reality.
Social media can help people gain awareness of certain topics, but when does that awareness start to sway opinions? Kevin Fisher, Executive Director of NAMI Michigan, a mental health organization dedicated to improving the lives of people with mental illnesses, says it's important to challenge your own opinions.
I ask why. If I give you my opinion, if I say, for example, racism is bad. Racism is a public health crisis. You have every right to say, why, Kevin? Why do you believe that? What are you basing that opinion on?
To learn more about the research-based effects of social media, I spoke with Dr. Shama Fahim, Chief Medical Officer at Detroit-Wayne Integrated Health Network. What effects does social media have on a teenager's mental health that they're developing and growing into the adults that they want to be?
Multiple studies. There was a study published in JAMA Psychiatry in 2019 that actually looked at social media usage in thousands of youth and found that youth that were spending more than 3 hours per day on social media were linked to increased risk of mental health problems, particularly internalizing problems like anxiety, depression, negative self-image, suicidal thoughts, and this was especially prominent for teenage girls and its impact on self-esteem. My advice for parents would be to monitor and limiting the child's social media use. The more you're aware about how your child is interacting on social media, the better you'll be able to address any problems that may subsequently arise.
My advice to parents, first of all, is to please listen to your children. If a child is exhibiting behavior that leads you to believe that they might be experiencing a mental health crisis, whether it is depression, you've noticed that they become more withdrawn, they're not spending time with friends, their quality of their schoolwork is suffering, listen to your children. And if you believe they need help, get them help. Don't let stigma prevent you from getting the help that your child may need.
It is incredibly addictive because you just want more. You just want to be happy and see those things and get away from the world, but then you get away from it too much.
There's a dependency that comes with social media, and Dr. Fahim shares how that can lead to addictive behavior.
Between ages 10 to 12, there are changes in the brain going on that makes social rewards such as compliments release some neurotransmitter hormones like happy neurotransmitter hormones like oxytocin or dopamine. All of that can make our youth extra sensitive to attention, admiration from others.
I feel like it's kind of like chocolate. You eat it and you're like, oh my God, this is so good. And then like 5 minutes later, you kind of feel like, oh.
During our conversation, I asked Marissa, Sophia, and Brianne a more difficult question. Will social media ever cease to exist?
You know, one social media platform can die out and another one will probably come and draw people in again. So I think that cycle would probably be really difficult to break with technological advancements.
It'd probably just have to be a society thing, but is the whole society just going to decide to do that?
In conclusion, social media is here to stay. So the bigger question is, how do we manage social media in a healthy way?
You know, we get caught up in watching other people do things, other people's lives, and not being as focused on our own. So I think it's important to do things that make you feel as present as possible.
Our series of important conversations about the future of work in Michigan continued in September with a focus on women in the workforce. Guest host Trudy Gallant-Stokes led a virtual town hall discussion about women in leadership, access to affordable childcare, and other topics affecting women in the workforce. Here's a portion of that conversation with guest panelists Terry Barclay of Inform and Charity Dean from the Michigan's Women Commission.
While women gained 188,000 jobs in January 2022, they are still short by more than 1.8 million jobs lost since February 2020. But in August, Governor Whitmer passed the free childcare expansion, making 40% of Michigan families eligible for free or low-cost childcare. So that's where we'll start the conversation today. I'm a third-generation working woman. And now I have 2 daughters who are working women. One is a new mom. And I just find it extremely frustrating that we seem like we keep having to have these conversations. How do the two of you feel? Does it feel like 2 steps forward and then 1 step back? Are we making any progress?
the causes for that are many, but I do think that childcare is a central concern for men and women in the workforce. The stresses on families, whether they could afford childcare or not, even in many cases when they could afford childcare, there was sort of a lack of stability because of the pandemic, and they would not know from day to day whether those services were going to be available. So there's no question that if we want to solve the talent shortage, we need to look at what services are we providing to support healthy families in Michigan.
Well, I guess it is encouraging that we do have this bipartisan effort now, and been announced by Governor Whitmer. And hopefully this providing low-cost childcare and 40% of Michiganders, if they qualify, that will make a huge difference, will it not, Charity?
We still have so much to go. Women unemployment rate is still higher than men's unemployment rate. But the first step is saying, how are we looking at who's eligible for assistance for childcare, right? And how do we make sure that even the working poor have access to this great resource? I think, as a Michigan Women's Commissioner, we spent a lot of time when we were first, when the governor was first elected. We went around the state and we held conversations for women. And this is pre-pandemic. And we said, what are your issues? We had conversations in the UP. We had conversations in Grand Rapids. I hosted one in Detroit. And, back then, the Michigan Women's Commission was placed in civil rights. And as a result of all these conversations, what we realized and what we know and what we're talking about today is that women's issues are economic issues. And so in order to help solve that problem, the Michigan Women's Commission actually moved, and now we're placed in Leo and Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. And the goal is, how do we solve for these very critical problems that are impacting half of our population, right? And so the first thing is this bipartisan effort to help expand eligibility for childcare. And I'm sure later we're going to talk about our TriShare program as well, which is another great tool to help women.
So Terry, you obviously are communicating directly with top management and companies. What do you hear from them, and what do you hear from those people who have just decided, I can't keep this corporate job? Do they want on-site childcare? Do they want vouchers? What are they looking for?
Well, I think, oh gosh, Trudy, there's layers to that question, right? So first of all, there's no question, Charity mentioned it, women's leadership is good for the economy. And there's study after study that shows that. There was a multi-university study that was published in April of 2021 that looked at 150 companies. And they saw that after women joined top management teams, firms became more open to change, less open to untoward risk, and tended to shift away from a merger and acquisition focus to strategies that were more about investing and growing the businesses and growing the jobs, growing opportunities for employees, and growing through R&D. So, we see that women's participation at all levels of companies makes a positive difference. There's a lot of research there, but we have a ways to go. Inforum has for 20 years now published the Michigan Women's Leadership Report, where we look at the 100 largest companies that are headquartered in the state. And while there has been some progress for women in board positions, particularly at larger publicly held companies, I think one of the biggest takeaways is how slow that progress has been. And to Charity's point, how the inequities have just been persistent for all those years. The percentage of women of color on boards has not changed in 20 years. And so it's kind of like, what's that about? So there's work to be done. And I think that as companies, we see high level of interest in companies on the part of companies and sort of unpacking this and figuring out what they can do to make change. And so one of the things that has really emerged from the talent shortage is that women want more from their employers now in terms of workplace culture and investment in employee wellness and family wellness. And when they don't see it, they move on, or they deselect. And secondly, they want work that's meaningful to them. So we're starting to see data that says that top talent, the workers we need to power our economy in Michigan, are looking for companies that are making those investments in childcare support that will help them manage all of their lives so that they can be present at work.
For more of our coverage on the future of work, go to onedetroitpbs.org. That will do it for this week's One Detroit. Thanks for watching. Make sure to come back for One Detroit Arts and Culture on Mondays at 7:30 p.m. Head to the One Detroit website for all the stories we're working on. Follow us on social media and sign up for our weekly newsletter.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Support for this program is provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV, the Kresge Foundation.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you.